Yeehaw! We're gonna adopt a whole shit whack of kids, and I'm thankful that whoever has a problem with it can fuck right off!
Amen.
Well, there goes another Thanksgiving. Here, honey.
Crazy.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 19th issue of PAF, Festival of Film Animation and Contemporary Art, this year online. This particular program that you're about to see or participate in is prepared by our dear guest, Slovak artist living in Milan, Italy, Natália Trejbalová. Natalia has lived in Italy for many years. She studied painting at the Academy of Fine Arts in Bologna, film and video at the School of New Art Technologies at the Brera Academy in Milan. Her work focuses on systems of visual representation and deals with speculative narration, whether in form of the video, text, or within objects and performances. Her creative attitudes often abandon the perspective of the anthropocentric present, so it seems that the real, like the actual visual motifs, are from a distant future. Also, this is true for her work that she presents at PAF, which is solo exhibition and in XY Gallery, and also screening of her latest film about marriages and stolen stones. And this is actually the work unraveling, or maybe on the contrary, like more entangling the themes that we will be talking in this discussion, in this talk today. This discussion is live streamed at our website, 2020.pifpaf.cz, and on our Facebook account and Twitch page. Our online viewers are strongly encouraged to ask questions to the panelists. You can do it either here on Zoom in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, or if you are not able to join Zoom for whatever reason, you can ask in comments below the Facebook and Twitch streams. I will keep eye on those and will pass them to the panelists, and these questions will be answered at the end of the talk. I have just one technical remark, and that is that 5 p.m. there will start another program in our live stream. But we can and we will continue the talk, this discussion here on Zoom until we answer the questions from the audience. So probably it's more clever for you to join here us at Zoom directly if you want to engage more deeply in the debate and in the conversation. And also one more thing, let me please excuse our fifth participant, the US artist Marissa Olson, who was unfortunately unable to attend this discussion today. But you can still watch some of her videos and some of her works in the VOD section of our website. That's all from me now. Let me pass the word to Natalia, who would guide you through this program and introduce her guests.
Hi, thanks Mary for the introduction, and thank you everybody for the participation and the PAF Festival for inviting to screen the film and to make this discussion. It's really a pleasure. And so I will introduce you the guests of this discussion, which are Anna Peraica. She's a lecturer and at the Danube University at Krems and theorist. And Valerio Mannucci, who is the head of content at the Nero Publishing House, Italy. Curatorial duo Francesco Urbano Ragazzi. And unfortunately, as Mary was mentioning, Marisa couldn't attend the debate. We are sorry, but she couldn't attend. Anyway, so since we don't have much time, I would like just to first, for my part, to quickly introduce the film and perhaps the background of its creation, and then I will ask some questions to the guests, and I will leave the work to them. So as Mary was saying, this is a kind of a presentation for the future screening of the film about mirages and stolen stones. I started to work on the film probably a bit more than 2 years ago, when I got to an article that was speaking about a renewed interest in the flat Earth theory. It was gaining more and more popularity, and I was kind of struck by this information, because I was always interested in conspirational theories, but I actually thought that there were some certainties even in the realm of conspirational theories, and that that also the sphericity of the Earth was something that was sure. But then I realized that there's nothing sure in these possible theories. And then when I was reading Foucault's Pendulum, everything got back together also in this reasoning. So I slowly started to find this Earth flattening more evocative. So I took it as for the point of view of a fiction, of fantasy, something just very fantastic. And I was imagining the believers of this theory living in a kind of completely magic world, like a perfect escapism. And they were living in a world which was very beautiful, because it has an end, has a center, a periphery, and an end, and then the vertex of the universe. And I was imagining them to visualize to visualize our Earth floating in the universal nothing. So that was very very interesting as an image of, and that's why the first part of the film, I was interested in the visualizations of the simulations of the material behavior in physics of material. And I will share the screen with you for. Okay, can you, PAF, can you enable share screen? Because so I can share the screen. Okay.
Sorry about that. Just give me a minute.
Okay, I think you can see now my screen, right? Okay, good. So this is one of the stills from one of the videos of the simulations of material behavior, and so the thing is that you can't see the context in which the subject is moving. So I was kind of interested in this, that the materials are like a way moving in a complete nothing. So that was one of the inspirations for the first part of the film. You will see, and these are some of the other images. And so we studied. So for the first part of the film, which you can see here, this is a still from the video. So we actually studied with the cinematographer Matteo Pasin the way in which we can shoot this in a studio and make the image seem more CGI, more as a CGI, as a 3D render. These are more stills from the first part. And as for the second part of the film, was actually this is the first still of the second part. Was meant to be set on this possible border of the Earth, showing the possible landscapes and and sceneries of this part of this new part of the world. And I was pretty fascinated by the special effects used in the cinema before the use of the digital effects, mostly because they have a different aesthetic than the films with made with the digital effects. They have a different kind of different world of colors, because the use of digital effects prevents the films are more into either blue or green color palettes, and I was interested in I was more fascinated by this use of special effects before, because they were not changing the colors. They were there was different use, so that's why this was one of the inspirations, let's say, for the second part. And I was also combining very much micro and macro, which is one of the main tricks in the use of special effects, to use props that are small and make them seem huge, and vice versa. And so I was also like studying a bit the use of the effects in the cinema of Karel Zeman, which is like one of the masters of the techniques. And I will show you some more stills of the second part. And the last part of the film is I know that I must have a sea landscape in the film, because the sea is a land of the mirages and the Fata Morganas. So that's why the third part of the film is based on there, and also because in this story, the waters falling into the universe are the only connection with what's outside of the flat Earth. And yeah, so this was a kind of hope I wasn't too quick. Just wanted to give you a slow introduction of the film, and then for the first, I would like to ask one questions to Francesco Urbano Ragazzi, a curatorial duo who did a text, prepared a text for the exhibition at the Casa Chiusa in Milan. And I know that you were doing deep research into the flat Earth theory and Reddit forums and everything regards the theory. So what struck you the most during the research? What was what did you find?
Yeah, thank you, Natalia, for inviting us, and thank you also, Paola Carico, to make possible the meeting with you and this collaboration. And talking about the research you were talking about, I will say that it wasn't a deep research, but it was a superficial. At this stage, we should just talk about superficial things, and it was really superficial because we actually didn't write a text, but we asked people around us, unknown people around us, to give us inspirations. And so the idea was to write a text through the commentaries, and commentaries which were not so just linked to the specific topic of flat Earth society, flat Earth theories, but also to a more wide range of topics, which some way at a certain point bump into a similar feeling of conspiracy, or both conspiracy and I don't know, imaginative thinking. And also, so we in some way we collected some comments here and there. Some of them came from the Flat Earth Forum, and then some other from I don't know, commentary about films. Some of them were also from meditation websites. Some other I don't remember, maybe from yeah, there was like a long conversation on the Instagram about cultural appropriation, some topics like that, which some way are part of our common environment on the internet, and which often are very, I mean, are to me very interesting. And some way we thought that there was a certain connection between this style, this I will say narrative genre, and your film and your video, which because both were like based. It's not just the core. It's not the conspiracy, but I will say that is the exploded narration, the idea of an explosion, which can be also even creative. And to specify the reason why we decided to work on commentaries is the fact that maybe we could say that this is the most emergent new genre, but it's also like a very traditional one. If we think about the scholium, so the notes on the sides that normally were written commenting very classical texts from the Byzantine and the medieval times. This is not so new, but nowadays this genre becomes very interesting because some way we have new feelings. I mean, there is a certain suspense when we read this kind of comments, because we are searching for ourselves, for our position in this global picture. And so it's a sort of new process of mirroring that can create even a certain tension. And I mean, we like this kind of feelings, and we felt that some way this kind of feelings can create new narrations. So that's, I mean, and we merge some part of them with the very precise statement from Quine and Putnam, so from philosophers, which are like merged without any hierarchy. And also our synopsis about the films is part of the commentaries. So it's like it's like the YouTube timeline in the shape of a text. But again, talking about this kind of process, I thought that there are these 3 or 4 hidden references, which to me are very important. From one side, there are like important statements from celebrities who were like who really believes in flat Earth theories, but they are merged with this series of quotes from philosophers who were using the language of science fiction in order to explain better their own theories. So we can see how if this even the science fiction can be very prolific, and it's a sort of a specific genre even for the philosophers, in order to better represent their own theories and to make them like more alive. So to me, also the celebration of the science fiction as a prolific form is, I mean, it's a very important point of your film and of this common ground that we created collaborating.
Yes, in a sense, reading all these commentaries about the flat Earth theory is a narrative experience, as Francesco said, but it's also an epistemological experience. You learn a lot what knowledge and science are about in a certain sense. That's why we decided to introduce in our text citations from some philosophers. The first element I would like to put on the table is that the flat Earth society is anti-scientific, but in a very specific sense. Which means that they believe in science, and they strongly believe in science. It's very different from someone who believes in magic, for example. The flat Earth society believes that there are physical rules. They conceive experiments, so they try to adhere to a scientific language, yet being anti-scientific, of course. So they are paradoxically scientific. They believe, I think, in a specific science. I would say in modern science, in Newtonian science. They hope that an apple falling on the head of someone will generate a scientific discovery, an interesting scientific discovery. So they believe in a science which is very close to their life experience. And I think that, of course, they are anti-scientific, but there is a very strong desire of being connected to science in their theories. So it made me think of a very interesting essay, which is called "The Politics of Life Itself" by Nicholas Rose. In this essay, Rose, who's a sociologist, underlines how science is becoming deeply connected to our own lives. Let's think about the upcoming COVID vaccine, for example, is based on a modification of our RNA. So, in a sense, science is entering our bodies, and yet for normal people, for not scientist people, science is perceived as very, very far away from our own lives. It's pretty impossible to have another Newton conceiving a scientific theory from an apple, for example. So it's interesting to underline how the flat Earth society is, in a sense, desiring to be very close to science in a very wrong way, of course. Another thing that came to my mind, considering this kind of anti-scientific theories, is another essay by Quine, a philosopher, who in 1951 wrote an article called Two Dogmas of Empiricism, in which he expressed the theory of underdetermination. This kind of theory usually has this name, under determination of theories by data. Quine, in his essay, affirms that every theory, every scientific theory, can't simply lay on data, on an evidence. Every theory needs premises. So, in this sense, believing in Greek gods is perfectly equivalent to believing in quantum physics, for example. Epistemologically, these beliefs have the same structure. They are theories which are based both on data and premises. The difference is, of course, pragmatic. If you believe in physics, you'll be able to predict events, upcoming events. If you believe in Greek gods, making prediction will be much more difficult, of course. But it's a pragmatic choice. So these the people who believe in flat Earth simply choose to live in a very difficult world. And there is some heroism in this. If you read all their commentaries, they are always able to add a premise to verify their theories. So they strongly believe in their theories, and they always are able to find an ad hoc premise to verify their beliefs. They are people of faith, of course, and they merge science with faith. And I think that this dimension is very interesting in our contemporary era.
Thank you, Francesco. Well, I wanted to ask, on the other hand, Anna, who wrote the book, The Age of Total Images, and you actually was speaking, talking in the book about how the rise of flat Earth conspiracy theories is emblematic of the post-digital image culture. Can you introduce us to your thinking a bit?
Thank you very much for your question. So in the book, it is a book in the domain of post-digital photography. It's not about flat Earth itself, but it compares the visuals which are being dominant in post-digital photography to something which is a pre-assumption of a theory of flat Earth. So not trying to prove or disapprove the theory of flat Earth, it analyzes the status of post-digital photography as a complete hybrid, which is a technological technological product, which is being used by many of us in our smartphones, in navigation, in many different practices in life, which are basically convincing us that the planet itself is not spherical for the reason that it's much more convenient to program the planet as flat. So the problem which I wanted to deal is the indexicality of photography and which way photography itself was reporting on spherical shape of photography, which is the first part of the book, in which I'm dealing with the problem of how photography discovered the sphere. And later on, I'm dealing with the problem how photography basically adapted to the flatness of the geographical vision of the world, which is the map, and map, as you assume, of course, is not representing the world as spherical, but rather as flat. So basically, the whole idea is that by limiting our own experiences to something which is a generated object, a digital generated object, for example, of Google Earth or some other applications, we are basically limiting our own experiences of the Earth as spherical, because we are living in a very populated and dense urbanized environments in which the spherical shape of the Earth is not accessible to our natural vision, as it was to, for example, the generation of our grandparents, or as it is to sailors. So something that was assumed as knowledge of past generation, the empirical knowledge is lacking, as for example, like observation of stars, observation of shadows of the trees and leaves, by all of which you can actually conclude that the Earth is spherical, and they have been replaced by digitalized and programmed and also processed images, which are basically convincing us in the flatness of the Earth. So despite the knowledge of the spherical shape of the Earth we are being introduced to in our education, what we are actually witnessing, what we are actually seeing, and the Earth we are using in digital space is basically flat.
In your book, you were also referring to the rise of the flat Earth theory as some kind of a symptom of the you call it the new medievalism and the change of perspective from the linear to the perspective used in the Middle Ages. Can you talk about this?
So basically, if you go back to the history of photography, then you are basically going back to the history of Renaissance perspective, of the technical vision, which is being defined by the subject positioning in space in regard to space defined as absolute category in which the objects are being placed. Contrary to that type of vision, which is statical and defines always someone who is perceiving, there is a completely different perspective which has been developed much earlier, and that is absolute perspective without subjective interpretation. So the subtitle of the book is The Disappearance of the Subjective View. So medieval perception of space was not describing the position of the viewer, but it was describing the space as it being seen by God. So this type of omnipresent viewer is present, for example, in maps. In maps, you don't see the person, you cannot reconstruct the placement of a person who was drawing the map, contrary to the placement of a photographer in each image being produced. So basically this type of mapping and omnipresent view, which existed before the rise of Renaissance perspective, which led us to the technical perspective of photography, is something that has been reconstructed by new media. But unfortunately, this omnipresent perspective, which we see, for example, in maps we are using in Google Maps and Google Earth, which recasts again the total view and, of course, total control, is not going alone as a medieval effect of medieval age. It also comes with different types of beliefs which are being reborn, which also may be related to medieval age, and like fear of medicine, like new traditionalisms in regard to the rights of women, like many initiatives which are being condensed around like rise of new theologies and old theologies. And so this medievalism is a compact and a huge phenomenon in which visuality as such is only an effect, but it plays a really huge role in convincing that things are not as they were being explained by the science, which again has been rising since the time of the Renaissance and trying to explain the world in terms of relative positioning in the space, rather than assuming that there is some kind of universal category of space and time, and assuming a theological explanation as a primary explanation.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to ask now Valerio Mannucci. Your publishing house also published books that were referring to the theme of new medievalism. So maybe would you like to, like, just this term? I think it just popped up like right after the accelerationist movement, and do you think it can be emblematic of something? And what do you think it has some kind of parallelism to the interest in to the rise of the interest in flat Earth theory in some way?
So first of all, thank you, Natalia, for inviting me to this panel discussion and for this question. And thank you all for having me here. Anyway, yes, I would like to take the clue from a thing that Francesco just said before, which was this idea of being unscientific but believing in science, which I don't know, I can like maybe I read the way in which like Francesco just said, and which I agree, of course, but I read as he was describing a sort of rational, irrational thinking. Well, I would like maybe propose I would invert the thing and saying that is probably an irrational, rational thinking. But I will get there. Maybe I know it's not very easy. I mean, I also agree with Francesco that they believe they live actually in a very difficult world for their beliefs. But I think also that we all live in a very difficult world for our beliefs. So it's this brings me directly to the point, and I want to start from your work, because your work pointed out, in my opinion, like it brings an assumption that deals with a word, with an idea, that is the idea of inevitability, let's say, something that is not avoidable or not easy avoidable. And in this sense, I go back to this idea of new medievalism or new dark age, which, as you just said, we have worked quite a lot with Nero. We published several articles and several books that deal directly or indirectly with these ideas, with this concept, a very layered concept that can be addressed from very disparate perspectives. I would say that it's interesting in this case, not just to do a folkloristic parallel with like just folk ideas or digital folk ideas, but I would go a bit more radically into this, and I would use one of the last book that we published that is called Demonologia Rivoluzionaria in Italian, which can be easily literally translated as revolutionary demonology, just because it's like a sort of an inside take on this. Okay, so if you ask them what's this idea of new medievalism, they would probably answer as like something that we cannot be ready for. We cannot. They would say, they would point to a even more specific concept that is like the Gothic insurrection. Let's say they call it like this, which is exactly something that limits itself in the dimension of happening. It just happened like an earthquake. Like for them, the Gothic insurrection is I don't know, the pandemic. It's the social distancing. It's the I don't know, Trump barricading in the White House. It's the broken vitrines of fashion brands during manifestation. It's literally what is happening on some level in our time, and they would address it as really as like a beast that is head down, pointing and attacking our modern society, modern ideas, modern state. It's like a really, and it creates like a wound, like a real attack to in the belly of our time. It's like something that we cannot just like expect or address with like political concerns or with like policies or with I don't know, with social engagement and so on. We can just like accept and like how would you say, face the fact that present and past, or even future and past, have somehow never been so close to each other. So if we somehow like enter in this dimension, which, as I said, is like a sort of an insider take on this new medieval idea, and in this, I would say that science and magic can also like go hand in hand somehow. as Francesco was mentioning. But to me, the magic aspect is part of it. The magic thinking, even if it's unconscious or unaware, somehow it's part of it. But what would like to point out is maybe like referring to another explicit reference to the New Dark Age, which is like James Bridle book that we also published, which precisely and explicitly talks about the conspiracy theories and in this perspective. And here I go back to that idea of re-tagging, relabeling this as a sort of an rational thinking, the one of flat earth theories, and in general, this kind of conspiracies. Because he basically points out a very problematic aspect. So he says, like, okay, we are facing a dilemma with rational thought, because we are basically trying to give every day we try to like rationalize a very vast and like growing irrational system, or even like vast and irrational systems in general, which are like the structures that we all know, the technology-driven historical process, the economic structure, the neoliberalism, the neocapitalism, and so on. We could go on for hours. But the point to me is that there is like an inner failure, as Bridle points out, for all of us in actually understanding on a rational level what is surrounding us. So here we go back. On one side, there is that sort of magic sense in which like we are facing a beast that is just like head down pointing at us and like coming without any rational understanding. On the other side, we have to admit that, for example, if we take paranoia on a clinic level, now paranoia, the first symptom of paranoia is the feeling of being watched by someone. Okay, so how could we blame people now for feeling watched by someone, for example? No, so we are inherently all paranoid in this moment, or at least we are allowed somehow to be. It's understandable to be paranoid today. So here comes the dilemma, the problem, the fact that we are trying to create a rational thinking, but in an irrational and vast mess of like rationality. Okay, so in this sense, all this probably leads us to the construction of what we see just on a superficial level as like weird, even cringe theories, no? But on the other side, we should ask ourselves really not just like if they are believable, if they are true, how true they can be, or how scientific they can be. We should ask how, maybe that's my proposal, like we should ask how inevitable this way of thinking are nowadays and how like deeply interrelated with like what our system is producing, even as a waste, is the context in which these theories start and grow and so on.
Thank you, Valerio. Mary, do we have some questions for from the public, or we can continue with the discussion?
Well, there is so far only one question, which is quite funny one, because one of the Twitch viewers is asking really like simply, why has the Earth flattened? And that's all by now.
Okay, somebody has an answer to that to such a question.
No, I would answer that. No, I really liked what Valerio was saying, because of course they accept to live in a very difficult world, actually in order to achieve a very simplistic view the world itself, in a sense. All the effort these kind of people made is made in order to believe that we can find, we can easily find an evidence of our beliefs. In this sense, again, it's the opposite of what contemporary science and contemporary epistemology claims. Like modern empiricists, they believe that there is an evidence to find, which is very a very simple idea, and so I think that's why the Earth and our minds, or not our minds, but some minds have flattened. This is my answer.
And do you think it has something to do with the change in the distribution of the information, that we gain the information a complete different way compared to 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, of course, there is nowadays an horizontality in the possibility not only of accessing information, but also producing information. So all these commentaries we studied, in a sense, are also strategies to give information to people, false informations, of course, but in the mind of the producers of these texts are information anyway. So this fantasy of radical equality, radical horizontality produce this kind of phenomena. And I think it's interesting because of course it's an irrational, they all are irrational thinking. It's interesting to see how they, what is the rational residue, in a way, to me, of this kind of thinking. How is it possible for some people to believe in this kind of thinking? And also, I think it's very important to consider these kind of theories in terms of desires. I think there are specific desires these people are expressing. Desire of participating, again, in a very simplistic way, not studying, not participating, not being peer-reviewed, for example, as all scientific procedures are made. But in a sense, there is an immediate way, an immediate desire of participation, an immediate desire of being close to science, an immediate desire of being close to truth, even.
I would add, I agree with what Francesco just said, but I would add about the information that probably is precisely this failure of understanding that also demands for more and more information, which is a very perverse process, because like the more information we demand, because we do not understand, the less and less we understand this amount of information, so as you all know, are completely out of our control, and like and we enter, even we can enter like the realm of like algorithm incomprehensibility. So I don't know, it's like really this complexity that basically asks for more complexity, and which results, as Francesco was saying, in like a sort of a broken result that is complete simplification of the complexity, something like
that. Well, I wanted to ask, maybe somebody would like to answer, because one of these, like, one of the canals of the diffusion of the information now, and certainly for the flat Earth theory, one of the most used is YouTube. So all the theory and the information are made in the form of video of the images. So it's something very much different to the written text or speech. Or do you think it has something to do with yeah? Do you think we changed our thinking or reasoning about things because we have different tools with which we access information?
Again, as we told before, I mean, not just the video, but the commentaries, which are part of what we are experiencing. So, some way, it's a. I mean, the interaction and the possibility of participating to the debate at many levels. It's to me much more important than the fact that we are watching like video, because if we scroll, words becomes videos. So we are watching things all around us and scrolling things, and they are all becoming like a sort of a movie. But to me, what is important that is the fact that between all these movement, we can catch something and start thinking like our desires and project them at many levels. So, and to me, it's what is interesting is the fact that in a way there is a certain proximity between this process of fast thinking of these kind of theories and it's like the tradition of the counterculture, because some way they are a minority. They are like, they have like also the perception of themselves as a minority, but they are like, so they feel like they have to adverse, they have to fight against a certain common idea. And to me, this is the new feeling that I find interesting. So the conspiracy can some way be not so far from the counterculture, which in some way is disappeared as a value. Don't know, it's a complex issue. So I mean, I just had this kind of vision, but I want to share it with you.
Hello, I just have a remark that the live stream will be in live stream will be another program by PAF, so we can continue on Zoom in this discussion. So it is like a just note for our online viewers who are watching us on our festival website or Facebook or Twitch.